Quincy Zeller sat on the bench outside the cafe, his gaze drifting over the rebuilt streets of Reims. For years since the war ended, and still he found himself startled by the sound of a car backfiring or a door slamming too hard. The spring air carried the scent of fresh bread from the bakery across the street, mingling with the earthy aroma of his coffee. He'd returned to France not for nostalgia but for closure. The letter in his breast pocket had brought him back across the Atlantic. Written in a feminine hand he recognized immediately, though he hadn't seen it in 7 years. Asterisk dearest Quincy asterisk. Asterisk I hope this finds you well. David has spoken often of meeting you. Perhaps now is the time. The Café de la Paix, April 17, 1949. Noon. Asterisk. Asterisk with love always asterisk. Asterisk Dorothy asterisk Quincy checked his watch. 5 minutes to noon. He smoothed the lapels of his civilian suit, still uncomfortable in clothes that weren't olive drab. The cafe door opened, and a man emerged. Tall, lean, with a slight limp. He wore a brown tweed jacket that hung loosely on his frame, as if he'd once been a larger man. His hair was sandy blonde with patches of premature grey at the temples. Their eyes met, and Quincy knew immediately. The British officer. The one from the photographs. Mr. Zeller? The man's accent was distinctly English, refined but not aristocratic. Quincy rose to his feet, extending his hand. Captain Quincy Zeller. Former captain, that is. Major David Zimmerman. Also former. His grip was firm. Though I believe we met once before, under rather different circumstances. Quincy searched his memory. Normandy. Saint-Lô. July 1944. You were evacuating civilians. I was trying to establish a command post. I remember now. Quincy gestured to the empty chair. Please. Zimmerman sat down, placing his cane against the table. I'm sorry for the pretense of the letter. I thought you might not come if I'd signed it myself. You wrote it? Not Dorothy. A shadow passed over Zimmerman's face. Dorothy Wellington passed away 3 months ago. Cancer. It was mercifully quick, in the end. The words hit Quincy like artillery fire. He gripped the edge of the table, steadying himself. I didn't know. How could you? She was very private about it. Didn't want anyone's pity. Zimmerman signaled the waiter. I think we need something stronger than coffee. The waiter brought 2 glasses and a bottle of cognac. Zimmerman poured generously. To Dorothy, he said, raising his glass. To Dorothy, Quincy echoed, the liquor burning his throat. She spoke of you often, Zimmerman said. More so near the end. I found her letters to you. And yours to her. Quincy stiffened. Those were private. Yes, they were. As were mine to her. Zimmerman sipped his drink. She kept them all, you know. Yours and mine. Side by side in a wooden box beneath our bed. Your bed. The words came out sharper than Quincy intended. We married in 46. Lived in London until 3 months ago. Zimmerman reached into his jacket, withdrawing an envelope. She wanted you to have these. Said you'd understand better than anyone. Quincy took the envelope with unsteady hands. Inside were photographs. Dorothy in her Red Cross uniform, standing outside a field hospital. Dorothy laughing beside a jeep, her hair escaping from beneath her cap. Dorothy serious, writing at a desk by lamplight. And one of Dorothy with Zimmerman, their wedding day. She was beautiful, Quincy said softly. Yes. Inside and out. Zimmerman refilled their glasses. Would you mind telling me how you met her? She never quite explained. Quincy closed his eyes, letting the memories surface. Asterisk Chartres, France, August 1943 asterisk. The field hospital buzzed with activity. Wounded men groaned on stretchers. Nurses moved between beds, dispensing morphine and changing bandages. Captain Quincy Zeller limped through the entrance, his arm in a makeshift sling, blood crusted on his temple. "Captain, over here!" A nurse with auburn hair waved him toward an empty cot. Her Red Cross armband stood out against her khaki uniform. "I'm fine, Just a scratch," Quincy protested. "That scratch is bleeding through your bandages, Captain." "Sit." Her voice was firm but kind, her accent unmistakably American. He obeyed, watching as she efficiently cut away his sleeve. Her hands were gentle but sure as she cleaned the shrapnel wound on his upper arm. "What part of the States are you from?" he asked, wincing as she applied antiseptic. "Virginia." "Small town you've never heard of." She didn't look up from her work. "You?" "Connecticut." "New Haven." "Yale man." Now she glanced at him, one eyebrow raised. "Was going to be." "Then the war happened." She nodded, beginning to suture the wound. "I was at Vassar. Nursing program. We were practically neighbors." That earned him a smile. "Hardly, Captain." "Quincy," he corrected. "If you're going to stitch me up, you might as well use my name." "Dorothy," she replied. "Dorothy Wellington." Over the next 3 days, as Quincy waited for transport back to his unit, they talked. She would find moments between shifts to sit beside his cot. They discovered shared tastes in books and music, a mutual love of sailing, and a similar sense of humor that seemed out of place amidst the chaos of war. On the third night, during an air raid, they huddled together in a corner of the cellar that served as a shelter. The walls trembled with each distant explosion. In the dim light, her face was half in shadow, but her eyes reflected the flickering lamp. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Always," she answered honestly. "But not of dying, exactly. I'm afraid of not having lived enough." He kissed her then, as the bombs fell miles away, and she kissed him back with a fierceness that surprised them both. The next morning, his transport arrived. They exchanged addresses, promised to write. She pressed a small photograph into his hand. "So you don't forget what you're fighting for," she whispered. "I couldn't forget you if I tried," he replied. "That's how we met," Quincy said, opening his eyes to find Zimmerman watching him intently. "We wrote to each other for months. Whenever I could get leave, I'd find her. Sometimes just for hours." "And how did it end?" Zimmerman's voice was quiet. Quincy stared into his glass. "D-Day. My unit was in the first wave at Omaha. I was sure I was going to die. Wrote her a letter the night before, telling her everything I felt. How I wanted to marry her after the war. But you survived." "Yes. Though sometimes I wasn't sure that was a blessing." Quincy took a long drink. "When I finally got to a field hospital 2 weeks later, there was a letter waiting. She'd been transferred to the Pacific Theater. No forwarding address." Zimmerman nodded slowly. "February 1944. She was sent to a hospital ship in the Pacific. That's where we met." USS Relief, South Pacific, April 1944. The ship rocked gently as Major David Zimmerman was carried aboard on a stretcher. Shrapnel wounds to the leg and torso from a Japanese mortar. He drifted in and out of consciousness, fragments of memory mingling with the pain, the jungle, the screams of his men, the hot metallic smell of blood. When he fully awoke, it was night. The ward was dimly lit, the steady hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the metal frame of his bed. A nurse bent over the patient next to him, adjusting and for. When she turned, he saw her face in profile, delicate features set in determination, auburn hair tucked beneath her cap. "Water," he managed to croak. She turned, surprised, then quickly brought a cup to his lips. "Small sips, Major. You've been unconscious for 2 days." Her accent was American, unexpected on this British-operated hospital ship. "Thank you," he whispered. "Where am I?" "USS Relief. You were transferred from a field hospital on New Guinea." She checked his bandages with practiced efficiency. "I'm Nurse Wellington. Dorothy Wellington." Over the next few weeks, as David slowly healed, Dorothy became his lifeline. She snuck him extra dessert rations, brought him books from the ship's small library, and most importantly, listened when the nightmares became too much. One evening, she found him attempting to stand beside his bed, his face pale with effort. "Major Zimmerman, what do you think you're doing?" "Going mad lying here," he said through gritted teeth. "Need to move." Instead of forcing him back to bed, she surprised him by offering her arm. "Lean on me." Just to the end of the ward and back. They made the slow journey together, his weight heavy against her side. At the end of the ward, a porthole showed the vast darkness of the Pacific night. They stood there a moment, looking out at nothing. "Do you have someone waiting for you?" "Back home?" he asked suddenly. A shadow crossed her face. There was someone. A captain in the European theater. Is, perhaps. I don't know anymore. She looked away. The letters stopped coming. "The mail is unreliable at best," David said gently. "Yes. Or he's dead. Or wounded. Or he's met someone else." She shook her head. It was wartime madness anyway. A few days together, then months of letters. Sometimes that's all it takes. She helped him back to his bed. As she turned to leave, he caught her hand. "I'm being transferred to an Australian hospital next week," he said. Could I write to you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'd like that, Major." "David," he corrected. "If I'm going to pour my heart out in letters, you might as well use my name." Her smile was sad but genuine. "David." "We wrote to each other for a year," Zimmerman continued. "I was eventually sent back to England for specialized surgery on my leg. She remained in the Pacific until the surrender. We didn't see each other again until after the war." Quincy nodded slowly. "She never mentioned me. Not by name. Just an American captain. I assumed he'd died at Normandy." Zimmerman's fingers tapped against his glass. "She came to London in '46. We reconnected. Married that autumn." "Were you happy?" Quincy asked, surprising himself with the question. Zimmerman's expression softened. "Yes. We were. She was extraordinary. Strong. Compassionate. Stubborn as hell when she believed in something." "That sounds like her." "It wasn't always easy," Zimmerman admitted. "She had nightmares. So did I. We both carried the war with us, in different ways." "Did she ever talk about going back to America?" "She missed it. But she said Europe needed rebuilding more than America needed another nurse." Zimmerman reached into his pocket again, producing a small journal. "This is her diary from 43 to 45. She wanted you to have it too." Quincy stared at the worn leather binding. "Why would she want me to have her diary?" "Read it," Zimmerman said simply. "Then you'll understand why I needed to meet you." As Quincy opened the journal, a pressed flower fell out, a small blue forget-me-not, dried but still intact after all these years. He recognized it immediately. He had given it to her their last night together in France, plucked from the ruins of a garden behind the hospital. The first entry was dated August 17, 1943, 3 days after they had met. *I met someone today. Cute, he makes me laugh, which seems impossible in this place of suffering. His eyes are kind, even when they're tired. I shouldn't feel this way during a war, but perhaps that's exactly why I do. Quincy flipped through the pages, scanning entries about their brief meetings, her fears for his safety, her joy at receiving his letters. Then, in February 1944, transfer orders came today. The Pacific. I've written to Q, but I don't know when the letter will reach him. Everything is chaos. So many wounded from Italy. I feel as if I'm abandoning them, abandoning him. But orders are orders. April 1944, a British major came in today, badly wounded. Something about him reminds me of Q, not in appearance, but in spirit. The quiet strength, the concern for others despite his own pain. His name is D. Quincy looked up at Zimmerman. D, that's you. Zimmerman nodded. Keep reading. June 1944, news of the invasion of France. I can't sleep, can't eat. Is Q among the thousands landing on those beaches? Is he alive? Is he wounded? No word from him since February. The mail system is abysmal. D notices my distraction. He is too perceptive sometimes. July 1944, still no word from Q. The nurses who've received mail say the casualties at Normandy were devastating. I must prepare myself for the worst. D has been transferred to Australia. He writes beautiful letters. I find myself looking forward to them, then feeling guilty for doing so. August 1944, a letter from Q today. He's alive. Wounded at Omaha but recovering. Says he tried to find me in England before the invasion. The relief I feel is overwhelming. I've read his letter a dozen times. He speaks of after the war, of a future together. Can I dare to hope for such things? The entries continued, chronicling her internal struggle as she corresponded with both men. Her guilt. Her confusion. Her determination to be honest with both of them. Then, a final entry from May 1945, the war in Europe is over. Q writes that he'll be sent to the Pacific soon. The thought of him here, perhaps meeting D, fills me with dread and something like hope. They are so different, yet so similar in the ways that matter. I love them both. How is that possible? Is it the war that has connected us, or something more enduring? I don't know how to choose. Perhaps I won't have to. Perhaps the war will choose for me. Quincy closed the diary, his hands trembling slightly. She never received my last letters. No, Zimmerman confirmed. When she was transferred back to a land hospital in the Philippines, a lot of mail was lost. By the time communications were re-established, you'd been reassigned. I was sent to the occupation forces in Germany, Quincy said quietly. I wrote to her old address at the field hospital in Chartres. The letters came back months later, marked undeliverable. And I was sent back to England for my final surgeries, Zimmerman added. We lost track of each other in the chaos of war's end. Quincy poured himself another drink. Why did you want to meet me, David? After all this time? Because she asked me to find you, at the end. Zimmerman's voice grew soft. She wanted you to know she never forgot you. That what you shared was real. That in another world, another time. We might have been the ones to marry, Quincy finished. Yes. They sat in silence for a long moment, two former enemies, two men who had loved the same woman, now connected by her absence. Did she suffer? Quincy finally asked. She was brave until the end. Just as she was during the war. Zimmerman's eyes glistened. In her final days, she spoke of both of us. Said she'd been blessed to know such love twice in one lifetime, when many never find it at all. Quincy nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. There's one more thing, Zimmerman said, reaching into his jacket pocket again. He withdrew a small, velvet box. This was hers. She wore it on a chain around her neck all through our marriage. I never asked about it. I think I knew. He slid the box across the table. Quincy opened it with unsteady fingers. Inside was a simple silver ring with a tiny sapphire, the ring he had given Dorothy the last time they met, in April 1944. A promise ring. A placeholder until he could afford better. She kept it, he whispered. She kept both of us, Zimmerman replied. In different ways. The afternoon stretched on as they shared more memories, filling in the gaps of Dorothy's life from both sides, creating a more complete picture of the woman they had loved. As the spring sun began to set, casting long shadows across the cafe patio. Zimmerman signaled for the bill. "I'm returning to London tomorrow," he said. "Dorothy is buried there, in a small churchyard near our home. She loved the English gardens. I'll visit, sometime," Quincy promised. "She'd like that." Zimmerman hesitated. "I have a small flat in Bloomsbury. There's a spare room, if you'd care to stay a few days before returning to America." Quincy considered the offer, surprised by how natural it felt. "I'd like that. Thank you." They walked together through the streets of Reims as twilight descended, two men shaped by the same war, loved by the same woman, now finding an unexpected connection in her absence. Not friends, exactly, but something just as meaningful, custodians of a shared memory, guardians of a love that had transcended borders and battle lines. At the corner where they would part for the night, they stopped. In the distance, the Cathedral of Reims stood illuminated against the darkening sky, its restored spires reaching upward, a testament to what could be rebuilt after destruction. "She told me once," Zimmerman said, "that the miracle of the war wasn't that people found love amid such hatred, but that they remembered how to love at all." Quincy nodded, understanding perfectly. "She would know. She reminded both of us." As they shook hands in parting, Quincy felt the weight of Dorothy's diary in his pocket, her pressed forget-me-not safely tucked between its pages. Tomorrow, he would read it all properly. Tonight, he would remember her as she was in Chartres, young and determined, her auburn hair catching the summer light, her laugh a counterpoint to the distant thunder of artillery. "Until tomorrow," Zimmerman said. "Until tomorrow," Quincy echoed, turning toward his hotel. The evening air carried the scent of spring flowers and fresh bread. Somewhere, a piano played in an open window. Life continuing, as it always did. As Dorothy had wanted it to.